The morning sun was shining bright over Earth when the alien ships appeared. Captain Jake Morrison was drinking his coffee on the bridge of the UES Liberty when the radar screen lit up like a Christmas tree. Hundreds of massive ships came out of nowhere, filling the space around Earth's moon. "Well, that's new," said Chief Engineer Ryan Brooks, not even looking up from his computer screen. He was busy checking the ship's new engines, the kind that could make their ship disappear and reappear somewhere else in seconds. Jake put down his coffee cup and pressed the communication button. "Luna Command, this is Liberty. I'm guessing you can see our visitors too." Admiral Lisa Carter's voice came through the speakers. She sounded tired, like she had been up all night dealing with this mess. "We see them, Jake. They've been broadcasting the same message for the past hour. The Galaxy Council wants to talk." Down on Earth, President Helen Davis was sitting in her office when her assistant ran in with the news. The Galaxy Council had finally decided to visit Earth directly instead of just sending messages through space. They had been getting more and more angry with humans for the past few months, but nobody really cared much about their complaints. The alien ships were huge, bigger than anything humans had ever built. They looked like floating cities made of metal and crystal, with lights that changed colors constantly. But the crew of the Liberty had seen big alien ships before, and they were not impressed. "They're asking for a meeting," Admiral Carter continued. "Over the radio. The High Arbiter Zexthal wants to speak with our leaders immediately. He says it's urgent." Jake laughed and shook his head. "Everything is urgent with these council types. Did anyone tell them we're busy this week?" Ryan finally looked up from his work and grinned. Maybe they heard about what happened at Brisbane last month. You know, when we accidentally destroyed that asteroid they said was impossible to move. The Brisbane incident had been a simple mining operation that went a little too well. Humans had developed new weapons that were supposed to break up space. Rocks for mining. Instead, they had completely vaporized an asteroid the size of a small moon in about 10 seconds. The Galaxy Council had been very upset about that dot on Earth. President Davis walked into the big meeting room where all the world leaders were waiting. The room had a huge table in the middle and screens on every wall showing the alien fleet outside. Everyone looked worried except for the humans, who seemed more curious than scared. The holographic image of High Arbiter Zexthal appeared in the center of the room. He was tall and thin, made of what looked like living crystal that changed colors. When he talked, his voice sounded like glass breaking, but the translation computers made it sound like a very angry English speaker. "People of Earth," Zexthal began, his crystal body glowing red with anger, "you have ignored our warnings for too long. Your species has committed crimes against the galactic order that cannot be forgiven." President Davis leaned back in her chair and crossed her arms. She looked about as concerned as someone watching a boring movie. "What crimes exactly? Building cities on empty planets? Mining asteroids? Helping other species improve their technology?" "You have expanded without permission," Zexthal continued, his color shifting to bright orange. "You have refused to share your advanced weapons technology with the Council. You have ignored our authority and acted as if you were an independent species." "We are an independent species," President Davis replied calmly. "Last time I checked, nobody asked us to join your club." The other world leaders watched this conversation like a tennis match, turning their heads back and forth between the president and the angry alien. Some of them were taking notes, but most were just trying not to laugh. Zexthal's crystal body turned almost white with rage. "The Galaxy Council has ruled this galaxy for 50,000 years. Every intelligent species bows to our authority, every species except yours." "Maybe that should tell you something," President Davis said with a small smile. "You have 72 Earth hours to surrender all your colony worlds and submit to Council oversight," Zexthal announced. "You will share all your technology with the Council. You will accept our governors on all your worlds. You will obey our laws and follow our guidance in all matters." The room was completely quiet for a moment. Then President Davis started to laugh. It was not a mean laugh, but the kind of laugh someone makes when they hear a really good joke. "Is that your final offer?" she asked, wiping tears from her eyes. This is not an offer, Zexthel said, his crystal body now glowing so bright it hurt to look at. This is an ultimatum. Comply or your entire species will be destroyed. We have done this to 100 other species. We will do it to you. President Davis stood up slowly and walked closer to the holographic alien. Counter-offer. You have 24 hours to get your ships out of our solar system. After that, we're going to show you exactly why the rest of the galaxy should be worried about us, not the other way around. The alien's crystal body flickered like a broken light bulb. You cannot be serious. You are one small species on one small world. We have fleets that number in the thousands. We have weapons that can destroy planets. So do we, President Davis said simply. The difference is, we're not afraid to use them. Up on the Liberty, Jake Morrison was watching this whole conversation. On his screen, while eating a sandwich, Ryan was still working on the engines, humming a little song to himself. Think they'll actually leave? Jake asked. Ryan looked up and shrugged. Probably not. They seem like the type who need to learn things the hard way. Should we start warming up the new toys? Already did. The quantum drives are ready, the plasma cannons are charged, and I've got the stealth systems running full tests. If they want to dance, we're ready to dance. Back on Earth, Zexthel was getting more and more frustrated. You are making a terrible mistake. The Galaxy Council has never been defeated. We have never been challenged. We are the supreme power in this galaxy. President Davis walked back to her chair and sat down. You know what your problem is? You've, been the biggest fish in a small pond for so long, you forgot that bigger fish exist? A holographic alien flickered again and then disappeared completely. The screens around the room showed the alien fleet moving into attack positions around Earth and the Moon. Admiral Carter's voice came through the speakers again. All ships, this is Luna Command. Looks like they're not taking no for an answer. All units, prepare for possible hostile action. Jake Morrison finished his sandwich and stood up. Well, boys and girls, looks like we're going to have some excitement today. Ryan, how are those engines looking? Perfect, Captain. Ready to show these council types what human engineering can do. President Davis looked around the room at all the world leaders. Some of them still looked worried, but most were starting to smile. They had seen what human technology could do, and they were not afraid of a bunch of aliens who had never fought anyone who could fight back. Ladies and gentlemen, President Davis announced, it looks like humanity is about to teach the Galaxy Council a lesson they'll never forget. The Galaxy Council had been the rulers of the Milky Way galaxy for over 50,000 years. In all that time, they had never met a species like humans. Every other intelligent race they encountered had the same reaction when they saw the Council's massive fleets. They would panic, beg for mercy, and then quietly submit to Council rule. Dr. Amanda Stone sat in her laboratory on Earth, looking at data from dozens of alien species. As the head of xenobiology research, she knew more about alien minds than almost anyone else on the planet. The Emergency Defense Committee had called her in to explain why humans were so different from everyone else in the galaxy. Every species that joined the council did so the same way, she explained to the room full of generals and politicians. The council would show up with their big ships, make their demands, and the aliens would surrender without a fight. They've been doing this for thousands of years. General Chris Morgan leaned forward in his chair. So what makes us different? Dr. Stone smiled and pulled up a chart on the big screen. Look at this data. The average council member species took about 6 months to fully surrender after first contact. The longest holdout lasted 2 years, and that was only because they lived underwater and the council had trouble reaching them. And humans? Asked Admiral Carter, who was attending the meeting by video link from Luna Command. Humans have been in contact with the council for 30 years. In that time, we've ignored every order they've given us, expanded to 47 different star systems, and developed technology they can't even identify. We've never once acted like we were afraid of them. The truth was simple but shocking to everyone who wasn't human. The Galaxy Council had spent 50,000 years as the only advanced civilization in their part of the galaxy. They had never fought a real war because they had never needed to. Every species they met was either too primitive to fight back or too scared to try. Commander Pete Jackson was already moving his rapid response fleet toward the outer colonies. The Council had expected humans to abandon their settlements and run back to Earth like scared children. Instead, something amazing was happening on every human world. On New Detroit, a mining colony near the edge of human space, Governor Bill Tucker was holding a town meeting. The Council had specifically demanded that this colony be abandoned because it was too close to their territory. "So, they want us to pack up and leave," Governor Tucker announced to the crowd of miners and their families. "Anyone want to vote on that?" The crowd erupted in laughter. These were people who had left Earth to build new lives on a world that was mostly rock and ice. They had spent years making this place into something that could support human life. The idea of running away because some aliens told them to was ridiculous. "I say we show them what human miners can do with industrial explosives," shouted someone from the back of the room. More laughter and cheering followed on Mars' governor. Claire Phillips was having a similar conversation with her terraforming crews. Mars had been humanity's first successful colony world, and they had spent decades changing its atmosphere to make it breathable for humans. "They want us to stop terraforming and hand the planet over to them," she told her staff. Apparently, changing a planet's atmosphere without permission is against galactic law. The head of the atmospheric engineering team, a woman named Carol Wright, shook her head in disbelief. "We've been working on this project for 40 years. My father helped design the first atmospheric processors. They think we're just going to walk away from all that work?" "That's exactly what they think," Governor Phillips replied. "They're used to dealing with species that give up easily. They don't understand that humans don't quit." Back on Earth, the Council's preliminary scans were showing results that confused their military computers. Human settlements looked small and weak compared to the massive cities built by other species, but the energy readings were completely wrong. Human installations were producing power levels that should have been impossible for such small buildings. High. Arbiter Zexville was studying these reports in his command ship. The numbers made no sense. According to Council intelligence, humans had only been spacefaring for about 100 years. They should have technology that was barely more advanced than throwing rocks. Instead, their energy signatures were higher than some Council worlds. "Perhaps our sensors are malfunctioning," suggested Sub-Arbiter Veltar, his second in command. "Run the scans again," Zexthel ordered. "Focus on their military installations." The new scans came back even more confusing. Human military bases were tiny compared to Council standards, but they were generating energy fields that the Council's computers couldn't identify. Worse, new installations were appearing faster than they could count them on Luna. Admiral Carter was coordinating with defense installations across the solar system. What the Council didn't understand was that human military strategy was completely different from theirs. The Council built massive, obvious fortresses that were designed to intimidate enemies. Humans built small, hidden installations that were designed to actually fight. "Status report from all stations," she requested. "Lunar defense grid is online and ready," came the first response. "All mass drivers are loaded and targeted." "Asteroid belt mining stations report ready." "All mining lasers have been reconfigured for combat use." "Jupiter Research Station is standing by." "Antimatter production is at full capacity." Each report sounded routine, but the Council would have been horrified if they understood what they were hearing. Human mining lasers were powerful enough to cut through asteroids in seconds. Their mass drivers could accelerate chunks of metal to significant fractions of light speed. Their research stations were producing antimatter, one of the most dangerous substances in the universe. Dr. Stone was reviewing intelligence reports about Council military doctrine when she made a disturbing discovery. "They've never actually fought a war," she announced to her research team. "What do you mean?" asked her assistant, Dr. Kevin Barnes. "Look at this data." Every council victory in their history was achieved through intimidation or overwhelming numbers against primitive opponents. They've never fought against anyone who could actually hurt them back. This was the Galaxy Council's greatest weakness, and they didn't even know it. They had spent 50,000 years believing they were unbeatable because they had never been tested. Their ships were designed to look scary, not to survive real combat. Their tactics were based on making other species surrender, not on actually winning battles. Meanwhile, humans had been preparing for this moment without even realizing it. Every human colony was built by people who had chosen to leave the safety of Earth and face unknown dangers. Every human ship was designed to operate independently in hostile environments. Every human soldier was trained to fight against opponents, who might be stronger, faster, or better equipped. Commander Jackson's fleet reached the outer colonies just as the Council's advanced scouts were moving into position. What should have been a simple intimidation mission was about to become the Council's first real military challenge in 50,000 years. "All ships, this is Commander Jackson," he announced over the radio. "Remember, these aliens have never fought anyone who wasn't scared of them. Let's show them what happens when they pick on someone their own size." The Council scouts detected the approaching human ships and prepared to deliver their usual demands for surrender. They had done this hundreds of times before with other species. But as they watched the human ships approach, something felt different. These ships weren't trying to run away or hide. They were coming straight at their Council fleet, and their energy signatures were getting stronger every second. For the first time in 50,000 years, the Galaxy Council was about to discover what real resistance looked like. High Arbiter Zexthal was starting to feel something he had never experienced before in his long life: doubt. The human response to their ultimatum made no sense according to everything the Council knew about how intelligent species should behave. Instead of panicking or trying to negotiate, the humans had simply ignored the threat and continued with their normal activities. Even worse, their military units were moving toward Council positions instead of running away. This was not how things were supposed to work. Zexthal stood in the command center of his flagship, looking at the tactical displays that showed human ship movements throughout their territory. The numbers were all wrong. Human fleets were spreading out instead of gathering together for defense. Their colonies were sending out more ships instead of calling them back for protection. "Sub-Arbiter Veltar," he called to his second-in-command, "explain to me why the humans are acting this way." Veltar studied the displays with confusion written across his crystalline features. "Perhaps they do not understand the magnitude of our threat, High Arbiter. Should we demonstrate our power by destroying one of their smaller colonies?" "That is what we always do," Zexthal replied. "But something tells me these humans will not react the way others have." The first real test came near Proxima Centauri, where Captain Nina Rodriguez was leading a squadron of human destroyers on patrol duty. The Council had sent a scout fleet of 12 ships to that system, expecting to find a few primitive human vessels that would surrender immediately. When they saw the Council's superior numbers, Captain Rodriguez was a former military pilot who had joined the Colonial Defense Force because she enjoyed the challenge of protecting human settlements on the frontier. When her sensors detected the approaching Council ships, her first reaction was not fear but excitement. "Well, look what we have here," she announced to her crew over the ship's communication system. 12 Council ships heading our way. "Looks like they want to play." The Council scout commander, a being called Fleet Master Kextal, opened communications with the human ships using the standard intimidation protocol that had worked on every other species for 50,000 years. "Human vessels, you are ordered to surrender immediately and prepare to be boarded. Resistance will result in your complete destruction." Captain Rodriguez laughed so hard that her crew could hear it throughout the ship. "Surrender? We just got here. How about you surrender to us instead? We promise to be gentle." Fleet Master Kextal was confused by this response. In his experience, primitive species either begged for mercy or tried to run away. They never made jokes or suggested that the Council should surrender to them. "You have 10 seconds to comply or we will open fire," he announced. hoping that a direct threat would bring the humans to their senses. 10 seconds, Captain Rodriguez replied. That's plenty of time. Rodriguez to all ships, weapons free. Let's show these council boys what human engineering can do. What happened next shocked Fleetmaster Kextall to his core. The human ships simply vanished from his sensors. One moment they were there, the next moment they were gone completely. This was impossible according to everything the Council knew about space travel and military technology. Then the human ships reappeared behind the Council fleet, moving at speeds that should have torn them apart. Their weapons fired beams of energy that punched through Council shields like they were made of paper. 3 Council ships were destroyed in the first 10 seconds of combat. Fleetmaster Kextall tried to turn his fleet around to face the human ships, but they had vanished. Again. This time they appeared above the Council formation, firing down at angles that should have been impossible to achieve. 2 more Council ships exploded in balls of fire. Retreat! Kextall ordered his remaining ships. Full retreat. Get us out of here. But the human ships were too fast. They appeared and disappeared around the fleeing Council vessels like ghosts, picking them off one by one. In less than 5 minutes, 11 of the 12 Council ships had been destroyed. Only Kextall's flagship escaped, and it was badly damaged. Captain Rodriguez watched the last Council ship jump away to safety and shook her head in disappointment. Well, that was easier than expected. I was hoping for more of a challenge. Back at the Council's main fleet, Zexthal received Fleetmaster Kextall's report with growing horror. The human ships had technology that the Council scientists couldn't explain. They could appear and disappear at will. Their weapons were far more powerful than anything their size should carry. And worst of all, the humans seemed to enjoy fighting. This is impossible, Sub-Arbiter Veltar said, reading the battle report. Their ships are too small to carry engines that powerful. Their weapons violate the fundamental laws of physics as we understand them. Admiral Ben Parker was reviewing the same battle from his command ship in the main human fleet. The tactical data from Captain Rodriguez's engagement was exactly what he had hoped to see. The Council's ships were big and impressive looking, but they were designed for intimidation, not actual combat. They've been the biggest bullies in the galaxy for so long. They forgot how to actually fight, he explained to his staff officers. Their ships are slow, their weapons are weak, and their tactics are designed for fighting enemies who are already scared. The news of the Proxima Centauri battle spread through both fleets within hours. For the Council, it was the first military defeat they had suffered in 50,000 years. For the humans, it was proof that their new technology worked exactly as designed on Earth. President Davis was meeting with the Joint Chiefs of Staff when the battle report arrived. General Morgan read through the data and smiled broadly. 12 Council ships destroyed, 0 human casualties, and we barely used any ammunition, he announced to the room. I think it's time to let them know what they're really dealing with. Not yet, President Davis replied. Let them think about this for a while. Sometimes the anticipation of what might happen is scarier than what actually happens. But the Council was not thinking clearly anymore. Zexthal was receiving reports from across the galaxy about human ship movements. Human fleets were jumping to systems throughout Council space, not to attack but to observe. It was as if the humans were studying Council defenses and choosing their targets. The Council's war computers tried to analyze human tactical doctrine, but the data made no sense. Human ships moved in patterns that violated every principle of established galactic warfare. They used their smaller vessels like fighters. They coordinated across impossible distances without any detectable communication, and their energy weapons seemed to operate on principles that Council scientists had never seen before. Perhaps we should reconsider our approach, Sub-Arbiter Veltar suggested carefully. These humans are clearly more advanced than our initial estimates indicated. Zexthal's crystal body flashed angry red. We are the Galaxy Council. We do not reconsider. We do not negotiate with inferior species. We will crush them with overwhelming force. But even as he said these words, Zexthal was beginning to understand that the humans were not like any species the Council had ever encountered. They did not fear the Council's threats. They did not respect the Council's authority. And most frightening of all, they seemed to have the technology to back up their defiance on the UES Liberty. Captain Jake Morrison was monitoring Council communications with growing amusement. The aliens were clearly panicking, but they were too proud to admit that they might have made a mistake. Think they'll actually try to attack Earth? Chief Engineer Ryan Brooks asked while running final tests on their quantum drive systems. Jake shrugged. Probably. They've backed themselves into a corner now. If they retreat without a fight, every species in the galaxy will know that the mighty Galaxy Council can be defeated by a single human squadron. And if they do attack? Jake smiled and looked out at the stars where human ships were taking positions throughout the solar system. Then we're going to give them a demonstration they'll never forget. The 72-hour deadline was almost up, and both sides were preparing for what would either be the shortest war in galactic history, or the beginning of a new age where the Galaxy Council was no longer the supreme power in the Milky Way. The 72-hour deadline passed quietly on Earth. President Davis was having breakfast with her family when the timer reached 0. Her assistant called to inform her that the Galaxy Council had not received any response to their ultimatum. Should we send them a message? The assistant asked. President Davis took another sip of her coffee and shook her head. They know where to find us if they want to talk. High Arbiter Zexfel was not in the mood for talking. The humiliating defeat at Proxima Centauri had been reported throughout the galaxy, and already some Council member species were questioning whether the Council was still strong enough to protect them. This could not be allowed to continue. Begin the assault on the Sol system, he ordered his fleet commanders. Show these humans what happens when they defy the Galaxy Council. The massive Council fleet moved toward Earth with over 2,000 ships. It was the largest military force Council had assembled in 1,000 years. Surely no species, no matter how technologically advanced, could stand against such overwhelming numbers. But when the Council fleet arrived at the edge of the Sol system, they found something unexpected. The space around Earth was almost empty. There were no massive defensive fleets, no ring of fortresses, no desperate last stands around the human homeworld. Just empty space and a single human ship waiting for them. Captain Scott Williams stood on the bridge of the UES Retribution, watching the enormous alien fleet approach. His ship was alone, floating in the darkness between Mars and Jupiter, facing down 2,000 enemy vessels. His crew was calm and professional, running final checks on their systems. All stations report ready, Captain, announced his first officer, Lieutenant Karen Hayes. Excellent, Captain Williams replied. Open a channel to the Council fleet. The holographic image of High Arbiter Zexfel appeared on the bridge screen, his crystal body glowing with anger and satisfaction. Finally, the humans were showing proper respect by meeting him with only one ship. Human vessel, you are outnumbered 2,000 to 1, Zexfel announced. Surrender now, and your death will be quick. Captain Williams smiled and adjusted his uniform. Attention Galaxy Council Fleet. You are trespassing in human space. This is your final warning to withdraw. Zexfel's crystal body flashed bright red with rage. You dare to threaten us? You are one ship against our entire fleet. You cannot possibly believe you can win. You're right, Captain Williams replied. Calmly, we can't win. We already have one. You just don't know it yet. The High Arbiter was so angry he could barely speak. Destroy them! All ships, open fire! Show them the price of defying the Council. 2,000 Council ships fired at once. The space around the UES Retribution lit up with energy beams, plasma bolts, and missile explosions. The attack was so intense that it should have vaporized anything within 100 kilometers, but when the light faded, the human ship was gone. Not destroyed, not damaged, just gone. The Council's sensors showed nothing but empty space where the Retribution had been floating just seconds before. Where did they go? Sub-Arbiter Veltar demanded from his position on the flagship bridge. Before anyone could answer, human ships began appearing throughout the Council fleet. Not just one or two ships, but hundreds of them, materializing out of nowhere at impossible speeds. They struck from every direction at once, their weapons punching through Council shields and armor like they were made of paper. "Admiral," Ben Parker's voice echoed across all communication frequencies, broadcast from his flagship somewhere in the chaos of battle. "Attention Galaxy Council. You have attacked human territory without provocation. You have threatened to destroy our homeworld and murder our people. This act of war will not go unanswered." The Council fleet tried to respond, but they were fighting an enemy they could not even see properly. Human ships appeared and disappeared constantly, striking with precision and devastating effect. Council vessels that had never taken damage in 50,000 years were exploding one after another. Fleet Master Doran, commanding one of the Council's heavy battle cruisers, watched in horror as his escorts were destroyed around him. "This is impossible. Their ships are too small to mount such powerful weapons." His tactical officer, a young council member named Texner, was studying the sensor readings with growing amazement. "Sir, I don't think those are their weapons. I think those are their mining tools." "What do you mean?" "Look at these energy signatures. These are the same type of beams they used to cut through asteroids, just focused and amplified. They're not even using their military weapons yet." Dr. Amanda Stone was watching the battle from Earth's command center, analyzing the tactical data as it came in. "They're not trying to destroy the entire fleet," she announced to the room full of military leaders. "They're being surgical, taking out command ships, communications arrays, and weapon systems, but leaving the crew sections intact." General Morgan nodded approvingly. "They're sending a message. We could kill you all if we wanted to, but we're choosing not to." The message was being received clearly by the Council fleet. In 47 minutes of combat, they had lost over 800 ships without destroying a single human vessel. Worse, the humans were broadcasting their communications, so every species in the galaxy could hear the Galaxy Council begging for mercy. "Retreat," Zexthel finally ordered. "All ships, retreat immediately." But the human ships were everywhere. Council vessels that tried to escape found their engines disabled by precise strikes. Ships that attempted to fight back had their weapon systems destroyed before they could fire. The mighty Galaxy Council fleet was being methodically dismantled by an enemy they could barely detect. Captain Williams appeared on the flagship's communication screen, his image clear and calm despite the chaos of battle around him. "High Arbiter, your fleet is defeated. Order your ships to power down their weapons and prepare to receive our terms." "Never!" Zexthel screamed. "The Galaxy Council does not surrender." "Then you'll continue to lose ships until you change your mind, Captain." Williams replied, "We can do this all day. The question is, how many of your people do you want to see die for your pride?" Commander Pete Jackson's pursuit squadrons were already jumping to Council space, striking at their logistics bases and command centers. Within hours, the Galaxy Council was receiving distress calls from worlds they had considered absolutely secure. "Sir," Subarbiter Veltar reported quietly, "we're getting reports of human attacks on 17 Council worlds. They're not targeting civilians, but they're destroying every military installation they can find." Zexthel's crystal body was flickering weakly, all his energy drained by the disaster unfolding around him. "How is this possible? We had the largest fleet in galactic history." "Numbers don't matter if you can't hit your target," Admiral Parker's voice came through the communication system. "Your ships are designed to intimidate primitive species. Our ships are designed to fight." The battle was over, but the war was just beginning. The Galaxy Council had ruled through fear and intimidation for 50,000 years. Now, for the first time, they were the ones who were afraid. Captain Scott Williams was back on his bridge, watching the disabled Council ships floating helplessly in space. "This is the UES retribution to all Council vessels. You have exactly 1 hour to begin evacuating this system. Any ship still in human space after that deadline will be considered hostile and destroyed." High Arbiter Zexthel looked around his command center at the faces of his officers. For the first time in his long life, he saw fear in their eyes. Fear of humans, fear of what would happen next, and fear that the Galaxy Council's reign of power was coming to an end. "Send a message to the Council homeworld," he said quietly. "Tell them we need to discuss terms with the humans. Tell them everything has changed. The galaxy would never be the same again." 6 months after the battle at Earth, High Arbiter Zexthal found himself in a situation no council leader had ever experienced before. He was sitting in a waiting room, hoping to get a meeting with President Helen Davis, the mighty Galaxy Council. Was asking for permission to talk to the species they had tried to destroy. The neutral space station where the meeting was taking place had been built by humans in just 3 weeks. It orbited a small planet halfway between Earth and the Council's home system. The station was beautiful and efficient, showing off human engineering skills that the Council was still trying to understand. Admiral Lisa Carter was representing human military interests at the meeting. She sat across from Zexthal in a comfortable conference room, looking relaxed and confident. The High Arbiter's crystal body was dim and flickering, showing how stressed and tired he had become. "Your people have forced us to reconsider many of our basic beliefs about how the galaxy works," Zexthal admitted. His voice was quiet and humble, very different from the angry threats he had made months earlier. President Davis smiled politely. "The thing about humans, Ambassador, is that we don't like being told what to do. We're perfectly happy to be good neighbors with anyone who treats us with respect. But we won't be subjects to anyone." The peace agreement they were discussing was simple but revolutionary. The Galaxy Council would recognize human independence and territorial claims. They would establish formal diplomatic relations with Earth. Most importantly, they would stop their practice of forcing other species to join the Council against their will. "You understand that this will change everything," Zexthal said sadly. "For 50,000 years, the Council has maintained order in the galaxy through strength and authority. If we agree to these terms, other species will think they can defy us too." Admiral Carter leaned forward. "Maybe that's not such a bad thing. Maybe it's time for the galaxy to have some real democracy instead of one group telling everyone else what to do." The battle at Earth had been broadcast across the galaxy, and its effects were still spreading. Dozens of species that had been forced to join the Council were now asking for independence. Others were demanding representation in Council decisions. The old system of rule by intimidation was falling apart. Dr. Amanda Stone's final report to the Earth Assembly had explained exactly why this was happening. "The Galaxy Council made the classic mistake of believing their own propaganda," she wrote. "They spent 50,000 years as the only apex predator in the galaxy. They forgot that predators can have natural enemies. The agreement they finally reached changed the balance of power in the Milky Way forever. Humanity was recognized as an independent civilization with the right to expand and explore as they chose. The Council agreed to stop their aggressive expansion and to give member species more control over their own affairs, but the real change was in how other species saw the Council. The mighty empire that had seemed unbeatable for 50 millennia had been defeated by a single species in less than an hour. If humans could do it, maybe others could too. Captain Jake Morrison, now promoted to admiral, was leading the first joint human-alien exploration mission beyond the edge of the galaxy. His crew included humans, former Council species, and several races that had been independent all along but too scared to make contact with anyone. "The Council was right about one thing," he told his mixed crew during their first staff meeting. "Humanity is dangerous. We're dangerous to bullies, tyrants, and anyone who thinks might makes right. But we're the best friends you could ask for. If you treat us with respect." The galaxy was changing rapidly. Trade routes that had been controlled by the Council for thousands of years were now open to everyone. New alliances were forming between species that had never been allowed to talk to each other before. Technologies were being shared freely instead of being hoarded by Council elites on Earth. President Davis was meeting with ambassadors from 20 different species, all of them wanting to establish relations with humanity. Some were former Council members looking for protection. Others were independent races that had been hiding from the Council for generations. "We're not looking to replace the Council as the galaxy's rulers," she explained to each delegation. "We just want to make sure everyone gets a fair chance to live their lives without being pushed around by bullies." The Council itself was slowly learning to adapt to the new reality. Sub-Arbiter Veltar, who had taken over many of Zexthal's duties, was working with human advisors to reform the Council's government. Elections were being held for the first time in Council history. Member species were being given real votes instead of just being told what to do. It wasn't easy for the Council to change. Many of their leaders couldn't understand why they should listen to species they had always considered inferior. But the alternative was clear. Species that didn't like the new Council could always ask humanity for protection, and humans had proven they could deliver on their promises. Captain Scott Williams was now in charge of the Sol Defense Fleet, the most advanced military force in the galaxy. But most of his ships spent their time exploring new star systems or helping other species solve problems, not fighting wars. The best part about being the strongest military in the galaxy, he often told his officers, is that you rarely have to prove it. Most problems can be solved just by showing up and asking nicely. Commander Pete Jackson's exploration fleets had discovered 17 new civilizations in the past 6 months. All of them had been too afraid to make contact with the galaxy at large while the Council was in power. Now they were eager to join the growing community of free species. Dr. Stone was working on her next project, a comprehensive study of how different species could work together more effectively. Her research was being used to design new forms of government that gave everyone a voice without letting any one group dominate the others. "The galaxy is big enough for everyone," she concluded in her latest paper. "The only reason we've had so many conflicts is that some people thought they had the right to control everyone else." Ryan Brooks, now the chief engineer for the entire human space fleet, was working with alien scientists to develop new technologies that could benefit all species. The quantum drives that had given humans such an advantage in combat were being shared with anyone who promised to use them peacefully. "The Council thought technology was something you hoarded to maintain power," he explained to a group of alien engineers. "Humans think technology is something you share to make everyone's life better." 5 years after the Galaxy Council had first threatened Earth, the Milky Way galaxy was a very different place. The Council still existed, but as a democratic organization that served its members instead of ruling them. Humanity had become the unofficial peacekeepers of the galaxy, not through conquest but through the simple principle of standing up to bullies. High Arbiter Zextal, now calling himself Ambassador Zextal, visited Earth regularly to work on diplomatic issues. He had learned to appreciate human coffee and human humor, though he still didn't understand why humans found it funny when he tried to use their slang expressions. "Your species has taught us that strength without wisdom is just another form of weakness," he told President Davis during one of their meetings. "We spent so long being afraid of losing our power that we forgot why we wanted power in the first place." The galaxy had learned an important lesson. Sometimes the best way to keep the peace is to make sure everyone knows that someone is watching out for the little guy. And in the Milky Way galaxy, that someone was humanity.